Thank you all. Thank you to our hosts here in Göttingen for a very warm welcome, both in terms of temperature and collegiality. I'm going to talk a little bit about a specific type of content that has benefited greatly from IIIF, and that is manuscripts. My examples are going to mostly focus on medieval manuscripts, but what I'm saying will apply to anything with handwritten content. And I'm going to start with a very simple proposition. Every manuscript by its nature is unique. There's nothing controversial about that. And in the first 2 decades of institutional digitization, we saw a number of wonderful sites crop up, like the Huntington Digital Library showing their Chaucer manuscript, the opening page of the prologue. And they're unique even if they're transmitting the same text, like a similar Chaucer held at the National Library of Wales. But the study of manuscripts is founded on comparison, so going to a number of different repositories to study our works is problematic. So enter IIIF, and as Tom mentioned, we started working with medieval manuscripts in IIIF a number of years ago. But what we can do is start to build on-the-fly examples of comparison, like bringing the Ellesmere Chaucer from LA into contact with that manuscript from Wales in a single browser instance. And this is all user-driven rather than being pre-cooked. So the user has complete control over what they're doing. Once we've got our comparison built, we can zoom in. We can show our students things like the differences in orthography between examples, scribal mistakes and errors. And we can really focus on those things that give us information about how a manuscript was produced and what makes it unique. When we started IIIF in 2012-2013, we had a number of partners, and we were deeply excited by the fact that we had thousands of manuscripts in IIIF that we could bring together. And here you see Parker on the Web, as Tom mentioned, eCodices, the Roman de la Rose site. And this was a big deal for us. We hadn't been able to compare this many manuscripts in the past. But if you jump ahead 6 years, those early examples are dwarfed by the types of work that are being produced by the Vatican, by the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. Just an overwhelming abundance with now hundreds of thousands of images available for us to work with. However, we are on the front end of a tsunami because in the next couple of years, we're going to see an increased amount of content, which is going to need to drive us towards a paradigm shift in the way we think about working with medieval manuscript images. So what's driving that growth? Well, large institutions, and I'd like to particularly point out the German manuscript portal that's under production here, which is going to be a fantastic boon to the communities that it serves, with a goal of 60,000 manuscripts online. The Vatican, likewise, is about a quarter of the way through their 80,000 manuscript backlog. But we're also seeing dozens, even hundreds of small institutions contributing to this ecosystem. So it doesn't matter if you're at a small Midwestern American institution or the Vatican, you can still bring content together. And more importantly, your content can be used by users anywhere. So what are people doing with this content? Well, first of all, we're seeing the telling of stories. And I'm showing here a slide from a collaboration between Stanford University and the Vatican libraries to allow them to tell stories about manuscripts that have been generally under-cataloged. So they have 80,000 manuscripts, lightly cataloged, but their curators can tell stories by picking out details, by guiding a user through subsets of content, and then letting you dive deeper into the collection. We also saw this slide a little bit earlier, the reassembly of dispersed objects. And for any medievalist, this is a common use case. There are literally hundreds of thousands of fragments of manuscripts out there, as sometimes related. And what we can see with IIIF is a way of juxtaposing those, bringing them together, recreating them when necessary. We can also start working with scholars to enhance information about our manuscripts. Right now, we're doing a lot of pushing out of content from institutions, but IIIF enables scholars to bring information back in. So Jeffrey Witt, who was just on the screen, is one of the world's leading experts in Peter Lombard. And we happen to have a Peter Lombard manuscript in Parker on the Web. where we had exactly one table of contents entry. However, Jeffrey knows this content so well that he can describe the contents at a level that we simply couldn't when we were cataloging Parker on the web. So as you'll see here in this dropdown in just a moment, Jeff has provided us a very detailed, almost paragraph by paragraph table of contents. And if you compare that to what we were serving from Parker, you can see the benefit of reaching out to scholars to do this. Now, IIIF is also fueling collaboration, so I'd like to call out a couple of projects that are happening now or have just completed. The BNF and the Bibliothèque Nationale, supported by the Polanski Foundation, have collaborated to bring together 800 medieval manuscripts from France and England in a single portal. And it's important to call this out because this sort of project is now enabled by IIIF, whereas before it was very difficult to do. Our colleagues in Paris, Biblissima, have built an aggregation site for medieval manuscripts that is second to none. You can now discover across 60,000 medieval manuscripts in a single portal. Fragmentarium in Switzerland is using IIIF to bring together all of those fragments from around the world, letting scholars describe them and work with them. And most exciting is the possibilities brought about by machine learning. So eScripta is a project run by Peter Stokes. It allows you to either upload your own manuscript or, more importantly, pull it in via IIIF. And so what you're seeing on the screen is the transcription of a page using an AI algorithm in under a minute. And so right now it's doing some parsing, pulling together a little bit of information. And in just a moment, as it finishes, we'll see the page come up with all of the lines highlighted and a transcription available. Now, this opens up incredible possibilities for access to medieval manuscripts. As we start to think about having hundreds of thousands of manuscripts available, can we process them this way, make them fully discoverable by text? We can also use machine learning to do feature extraction, as Tom was mentioning earlier. And the example I'm going to show you was done about 4 years ago, where we opened up Parker on the web to a computer vision lab in Montreal. Didn't have to exchange images, just gave them URLs. And they gave us back a list of about 20,000 decorated initials from the Parker collection. So we can then use this to enhance our catalog, make discoverability and navigation of the manuscripts easier for our users, and contribute back to the community. Now, what we haven't talked about is the challenge that we're going to face very shortly when we have all of this data about manuscripts. How do we serve it? How do we store it? How do we preserve it? And most importantly, how do we reintegrate it for a seamless user experience no matter where the data is coming from? We can also expose our IIIF medieval manuscripts to broader audiences. Medieval manuscripts can seem esoteric, but if we can gamify them, turn them into something fun, we can make them common to users anywhere. And puzzles like this, which Mike Appleby modeled for us a couple of years ago, allow us to just open up these images to a whole new audience, children, uninterested adults, etc. So I'd like to thank you again. If you want to find out more about the IIIF manuscript community specifically, we have quarterly calls. There is a community group here, and there's information about a mailing list and Slack channels available as well. We would love to have you join us. Thank you very much.